Our ballot initiative being questioned or challenged is a question that would legalize sports betting in the Show Me state.
Yeah, lawmakers have come close to passing sports betting in Missouri, but it's never crossed the finish line. Deion Broxton reveals the legal action could end with the state losing out on millions of dollars.
I guess I would call myself undecided still at this point.
St. Louis sports fan Stuart Holgren isn't entirely sold on legalizing sports betting in Missouri. But come this November, he may not even get a chance to vote. A new lawsuit alleges a minimum number of valid signatures must come from each congressional district in Missouri. The plaintiffs live in 2 districts, including District 1, which covers the St. Louis area. According to the lawsuit, the districts didn't reach that threshold.
I do think that there's at least some merit to it.
St. Louis University conducted a poll earlier this year on sports betting.
Here we found an overwhelming majority of voters thought that individuals who are 21 years old or older should think that Missourians should have the ability to bet on professional sports.
If the lawsuit is victorious, SLU professor Stephen Roger thinks a bill in the legislature would stall like it has in recent years. But area lawyer Brady McIninch is betting legalized sports betting will be in Missouri at some point.
This will come. If for some reason this is invalidated, they will follow the proper steps next time. We're delaying the inevitable.
Holgren suggests there's too much money for the Show Me state to miss out on.
I guess if you're cynical, it's the way to get tax money.
The coalition behind the ballot initiative sent First Alert 4 the following message from the president of the St. Louis Cardinals. All 6 Missouri professional sports teams support Amendment 2, which would make Missouri the 39th state to legalize sports betting, while providing tens of millions in new funding for Missouri classrooms each year. This effort to decertify our ballot initiative is completely without merit, as Missourians came out in force to sign the petition that will be on the ballot in November. Deion Broxton, First Alert 4.
And First Alert 4 contacted the lawyers representing the plaintiffs in this lawsuit. We are still waiting to hear back.